All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into a really fascinating academic theory. It asks a pretty big question. Could there be a hidden mathematical and linguistic code woven right into the fabric of the Quran? It's a wild story that connects words, numbers, and even the sequence of revelation itself.
So, this is the big question we're tackling, right? Are we looking at a series of just amazing coincidences, or are there deliberate, interconnected patterns woven into the Quranic text? Let's take a look at the clues this theory presents.
So, where do we even begin with something like this? Well, the whole theory really rests on three core concepts which come from the text itself. You can think of them as our first set of linguistic clues. Okay, our first clue is a term called nisaf. Now, this one is super direct and mathematical. It simply means a precise quantitative half, a perfect 50% split. A great example is in Surah 73, which talks about praying for half the night. So, when you hear nisaf, just think a clean 50-50 division. All right, for our second concept, wasatan, we're kind of shifting gears completely. This isn't about numbers at all. It's a qualitative idea. It's about a moral balance, a middle way. The source for this points to a verse describing a community as justly balanced. So think equilibrium, not equations. And the third clue brings us right back to the numbers. The word is ka'amalap, and it represents the idea of numerical completeness or perfection. The classic example given is 10 complete days, a whole, finished set. You know, nothing missing, the whole deal.
So let's just pause and lay this out. We have two concepts, nisaf and ka'amilap, that are quantitative. They're all about numbers. But then, right in the middle, we have wasatan, which is qualitative. It's about balance. You're going to want to remember this distinction because it is about to become very important.
Okay, so we have our linguistic clues, but that's only part of the story. The theory also claims there's a parallel set of clues hiding in pure numbers. And this is where the patterns start to get strangely specific. And it all seems to kick off with this number, 74. Now, why 74? Well, it's the number of the 74th chapter, or surah, of the Quran, called Al-Mudathir. Just keep that number in your head for a second. Now, remember our first linguistic clue, nisof, that idea of a perfect quantitative half. Okay, so what happens when we apply that very idea to the number 74? We divide it by 2, and we get exactly 37. Not 37.1, no fractions, a perfect, clean nisof. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The number 37 isn't just floating out there by itself. It has a partner, 73. And just look at them, 3773. They're perfect mirror images of each other. In mathematics, these are actually called emirps. They're prime numbers, and one is the exact reverse of the other. This little symmetrical relationship, it's a huge piece of the puzzle. Okay, so we've got our linguistic clues on one hand, and these strange numerical patterns on the other. They seem like two totally separate things. But now we get to the moment where the theory claims they lock together in a way that's, well, it's pretty hard to ignore. So, to see how they connect, we have to look at the chronological order of the first 5 revelations, according to traditional Islamic scholarship. And as we just scan the list, look what's sitting right there in the middle, at position number 3. It's Surah Al-Muzammil, which is chapter number 73. And that's the connection. The third revelation, Surah 73, is the literal median. There are 2 that came before it and 2 that came after. The theory argues that this makes it the point of wasatan, that qualitative, balanced middle in this whole foundational sequence. All right, so we've looked at the linguistic concepts, the number patterns, and the chronological order of revelation. Let's put all of these different layers together now and see the complete picture that this theory is trying to paint. So this is the core of it, all in one spot. Let's just walk through it. First, linguistically. Surah 73 literally contains the word nisaf. Second, numerically. Its chapter number, 73, is the mirror prime of 37. Third, positionally. It's the wasatan, or balanced middle of the first 5 revelations. And finally, the link that ties it all together. That number 37 is the perfect nisaf, or half of 74, which just happens to be the very next chapter to be revealed. It's a pretty dense web of connections.
So the big takeaway is this. The people who propose this theory, they argue that these are not just a bunch of isolated coincidences. They believe this dense layering of linguistic, numerical, and positional patterns points toward an intentional, integrated harmony that's built directly into the text itself.
And this really leaves us with a final, kind of provocative thought. I mean, whether you see this as proof of some divine design or just a fascinating series of coincidences, it really pushes us to ask a broader question. If patterns that seem this intricate exist here, what other hidden harmonies are just waiting to be discovered in the great texts of our world?